a lot of the people that we assume in our area in Ontario, we have it's a lot different than it is out east and out west. So number one, like in the WHL draft, you have that early draft. So meaning for people that don't really understand this right now is um, here it's your 16-year-old year. Out west it's 15 or 14. Major
Yeah,
band,
even
right?
opposite, right? I'd say your draft is like after your 15-year-old year, so
Yeah,
you can get drafted and then play as a 16-year-old. Here we have it during their 14-year-old
yeah.
year. So they're drafted and they can't play in the WHL for a full another season yet.
Yeah, so which is amazing to me because um, a 14 that's got to be tough to judge to scout a 14-year-old playing in the OA or the WHL, and I don't even know how you project that because I've seen obviously you have too. You've seen so many changes in the best player from a year to or two, and someone that's a late developer or someone that just I mean it just takes time, and I just find 14 so young. There's so many changes.
Yeah, I mean I would not want to be a WHL scout. I think it's tough. It's tough enough. I mean, they try to project right 14 to really 18, 19, right? That's what they're looking at their team for. Like what's this
Yeah,
player going to be like in
yeah,
essentially 5 years? Some of these kids haven't even gone through puberty yet, right? Like
right.
how the heck are you supposed to know when you're waiting for growth spurts, you're waiting for this, waiting for that. So there's been a lot of discussion about that. I mean, I think the NCAA and the actually the BC Junior League was a big draw here. So there's a little bit more competition. So I think that happened, well before our time, kind of right of when those things were put into place. About why it was beneficial, and then it was really hard to change. I mean, I thought they were going to change it with during COVID when they lost the draft. I was like, well, what a
Yeah,
perfect time to bring it back, right
yeah.
to 15. But no, they never did. They decided collectively that it was best for the league to not, and and so they're stuck doing major bantams, which again, I think it just separates for out here. It just separates the path a lot quicker for players, because a lot of
Yeah.
these guys that maybe wanted to go WHL that don't hear their name called, they now automatically gravitate to the AJHL or the BCHL, and they think that they're going to be a college guy, right? Because not that it doesn't happen, because there's probably about 20-25% of the league is undrafted players.
Mhm.
At 14, it is hard to jump, right? You got to jump a lot of spots to end up to be able to play, right? So I mean, that's the reality of it. So I mean, really, it's a bit unfortunate in some contexts, but whatever, it is what it is.
Yeah. So essentially, like, so you feel like that's the reason that the draft is at 14 because the BCHL and the AJ are taking them a little bit earlier, and it's more of a geared for kids that want to play college. So you feel like the draft is that year early to get them in their system early, more or less,
Well,
right?
yeah, you have the ability to
Okay.
market them, right?
Okay.
Essentially,
Okay. That,
and BCHL, I don't know what the rules are like now that they've gone rogue, but like they couldn't actually talk to the same players at the same age, right? So
right.
now like the only window for them was the WHL, and so WHL could feed their Kool-Aid to them and get them on board, and the parents and everything else get excited about it. And I mean, in essence, I mean it is. I mean, honestly, a superior league, right? Like as
Yeah.
far as that's concerned. So the draw is there, and you get these kids wanting to go, and then yeah, you kind of got your hooks in them a little bit, right?
Okay. That makes a little bit more sense then. Um, yeah, that makes a little bit more sense, but still, it's young to be taking kids at 14, man. There's got to be a lot of mistakes being made.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, look at
Um,
the WH. I mean, the NHL draft's no different, right? And it has to be worse. I mean, at the pre-puberty level for a lot of these guys, right? I mean, it's for sure is worse. That's the one thing that kind of breaks my heart is for the guys that are smaller, late developers, that you call them, whether it's a late developer skill or just from a physical standpoint. Is like you just got to stick around, and sometimes you can't stick around, right? So then you are
yeah.
legitimately in the wrong league, right? And it's hard to
Yeah.
get out of the wrong league or the
Yeah.
wrong leagues. But
Yeah.
if you can just keep up your late birthday, whatever, like stay in there, I find that those players often end up to be the best players because they've had to
Yeah.
figure out their way around the ice when they weren't physically overpowering. And I know you've
Yeah.
seen that before, where some of these physically superior players, when the physicality catches up and everyone's as big and strong as them, they don't know how to play the game anymore.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe we could touch on that a little bit. Is that's one of the things I don't get too excited about a player too early. Like, so my son was a late birthday too. He's a December birthday.
Right.
So he was drafted, and I looking at him going to Guelph that year, and I'm like, you're just a kid. He was 6 feet tall, but like just a baby, and he jumped in that league, and I'm like, it's a huge jump, and as a dad, I'm like, I wasn't the biggest guy. I'm like just under 5'10", and I knew the game was a little different back then. But to watch him go into there, and his first, it was the COVID year, after the COVID year, so they played Kitchener, I think, 12 times, and he's a right winger going on Arbor Jackeye every game. And Arbor Jackeye was an overage. It was like, that's your first taste of hockey, son. And but that was the point. Is like, he was willing to do it, and he was willing to do it every day, and face the fear. And like, that's what I told him. I said, you might not be the best right now, but if you're continuing to do that for 4 years, what a player you're going to be,
Yeah.
right? And these kids that's my biggest talk that I have with parents and kids that are early bloomers is, I always say, I said, just not to be an ass, but don't get too excited too soon. So, because you got to remember, you got hair on your body, you got hair on your face, you're bigger than everybody. The game is actually easy. It's easier. So when everything catches up and you get that kid that hits puberty a little bit later, and he's willing to battle, and he maybe catches up in size and strength, that's good. But he's also got determination and the will to fight, not physically fight necessarily, but he doesn't realize that he's 6'2" anymore. He still plays like he's 5'6", and that's a dangerous player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they learn to move pucks. I mean, that's the other
Yep.
thing. I mean, like, you have to play the game differently, and really, in a game, it has to be a more evolved game at a younger level, right? Because some of these guys can just do the Sportsnet, highlight reel and just go end to end. I mean, that obviously ends at some point too, right? And if you don't know how to move pucks and get them back, or what open ice looks like, because you never had to find it, that's a detriment, because it's hard to learn that in junior at 18 years old. I'll tell you that right now.